morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you are, it's a good time to learn about accessibility, right?
Always. It's always a good time. There's never a bad time to learn about accessibility. How are you, Michelle? Good morning.
I'm doing well. How are you? Good afternoon to you.
I'm all right. Okay. And I'm very happy to be here. All the better for seeing you, really.
Likewise. And last week we talked about typography. And the week before that was HTML, I believe. I've already started to lose track of what we've done and where we're going. But this week we're talking about text and how to be more accessible with text. And I know that some people will say, well, you did typography. What's different between typography and text? There's a lot different. There is absolutely some crossover because, nothing is in its own silo. Everything exists together. But there is a lot to talk about with text, isn't there?
So much. And yes, typography is what gives shape to text. But then what do we write before we even give it shape? So to me, when I talk about text, it is also about the layout, but we did talk about it last week.
Mm-hmm.
But text in general, there is so much to consider, and it's basic because one thing that we did say last week was that 95% of the internet, it's still probably text. I said last week, and I'm going to say it again, there is no way I can prove this absolutely wild claim. But if you go online and have a look around, you can not do without text. Plus, as we said, you could do a whole web page without any images, without any video, but you couldn't do it without text, because
Right.
even if you did, you would need all text for all the images.
Right.
So there's no getting away from it. Really, the internet was born to transmit, to share written language, and it still pretty much is about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of the time, I was talking to you, we talked a little bit, before we get started. Of course, I'm always like asking questions and we're talking and saying things like that to each other. One of the things that I had struggled with in the past was alt text. And we're going to talk a little bit about alt text today. Whether I'm writing enough, whether I'm writing too much, how to put text, if text is in the image but isn't the only thing in the image, what do I put about the text versus what else is in the image? Like, there's a lot that goes into alt text. Besides, and when you say to somebody, well, describe what's in the picture, you might describe something vastly different than I might describe something. And so trying to figure out exactly what do I put in alt text. And then, and not just on web design, of course, social media now allows you to put, thank goodness, finally, right? A lot across all the platforms, you can put alt text in your images on socials as well. And trying to figure out, I will tell you, I have been guilty before of, do I post this picture or not? Because I don't know how to describe it. I don't need to post the picture, because like, if I can't figure out quickly what to say about it, then probably nobody else needs to see it and it can stay in my head. But there's more to it than that, of course. And so let's get into it.
Yes, so alt text really is such a vast topic, and you are so right. And I mean, it goes in your honor that you would rather not post an image that posts the wrong alt text. But the thing is that it is difficult, and this is one of the reasons why AI is not there yet, because I know, my good friend Andrew Palmer has an AI tool. It's called Bertha. He will say, oh, use Bertha for AI. And I do say, do use it, see what it comes out with. But what Bertha or AI in general can do yet is interpret, because it's exactly what you're saying. If you, Michelle, can't work out what to put in an image, AI can't do that either. And I actually asked in one of the Slack accessibility channels. I can't remember if it was Make WordPress or Post Status. And I asked Joel Dolson, who's one of the authorities. Yes, I am talking about Bertha, Andrew. And he's there. Hello.
Hi, Andrew. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Andrew. Yeah, definitely talking to you. So even though Bertha is a really good start to write the old text, but the thing is that what is crucial to alt text is, as you were saying, it's the context and how much to describe or not. Sometimes too much information is redundant. You don't need to describe the whole image. And actually, I said I was not going to share slides this time, but I think it's important, and I think that I will. I'll share at least one slide that I have.
Sure.
Shall I do that? Because
Absolutely.
it explains the concept of context, and Andrew agrees, because Andrew and I, generally speaking, we agree that's absolutely not true. We often very loudly disagree, and well, we're still friends. So let me just in window. Okay, so I got it playing, and I will now share the window. Share
Well,
screen.
you're bringing that up. I'll talk about it for a second. The WordPress photo directory has grown, not just in the number of photos, but in how we talk about photos and use photos. And one of the things that has been now required for a while is you can't post a photo to the directory without supplying alt text for the image, which is good, but also challenging as a photo moderator because not everybody describes an image well. And one of the things that I think is interesting, and this is very culture specific for the most part, is that some people will describe emotion in an image as opposed to, and I'm not talking about like somebody crying, right? I'm talking about like it's a very serene day over this town or something like that. And sometimes I wonder, like, how much are you interpreting for yourself and how much should you be sharing with the person who's hearing the alt text? And so there's just so much that goes into it. So okay, I've got your image up on the
Yeah,
screen now.
but that's the point. So if it is your decision, so what do you want if you are the person who took the image and you want? So I think actually an image library is slightly different. And I used to sell. I actually still do. I hardly ever check how much money I've made because I hardly anything now. But I used to sell, and I still have my portfolio of images on up on image libraries. And that's a different thing. In that case, I would say that you describe the photo factually, because if it's for an image library, so the context doesn't matter, and people need to know what's in their image, because then they're going to take it and use it for something else. So in the case of an image library, you have to be absolutely factual and describe the image. But here, what we have on the screen now is, and I'm actually this is the factual description with no context. Now I have to, with also the 1 million windows that I have open, this is the one. It's view of Piazza del Campo, which you would call Campo Square, I guess, in my hometown of Siena, by the way. The Mangia Tower, Torre del Mangia, and Santa Maria in Provenzano Church, Siena. Now, actually, this would not be enough in the context of a photo library, because there's a lot of things that I don't say about the image. I should describe the image further in order for someone who can't see it to decide whether it's the right image for them or not. So I would add, there's a blue sky. It's an aerial view seen from above. It's a probably a sunset view. It's not middle of day. Siena is a medieval town. There's this square. I would add on the description. And in fact, I think it would be interesting. And thank you for talking about that, because I think I'm going to go and check what I used to write, because I remember it was like a whole art, and I would use Lightroom to make sure that I could always edit my text descriptions. And so Andrew is actually saying, I think that alt text generators are a good thing as long as that text is editable. It gives a great start to describing an image. Where it gets lost is just leaving the alt text as it is. Absolutely agree, Andrew. And that's exactly what Joe Dawson, I started saying that earlier, and then I realized that I digressed, and didn't finish that thought. But Joe Dawson, I asked in general in that context, and I asked Joe specifically as an accessibility expert, the role of AI in things like alt text, and he said that in general the problem is interpretation. Actually, did I finish? Maybe I did finish that. Oh my God. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm reading a really great book on someone that had a brain injury after an accident. He has exactly 80 minutes memory span. Mine is about 8 apparently. So anyway, so the back to the image that we have on the screen, the no
Mhm.
context, a brief factual description. It tells you what it is. Have another drink, love. I haven't had any yet. So, but on a news page, there's a horse race that gets staged in this square in the city of Siena twice a year. So if this image was on a news page on a newspaper about the cancellation of the horse race because of the weather, then you would say something like, the sun is shining again on Piazza del Campo after the summer storm last night, 16th of August 2024. The sky is blue and clear of clouds with great visibility on the hills stretching north of the city all the way to the horizon. And then the news may, continue saying it's highly likely that tomorrow we'll be able to run the race, so this is so you see how the image changes completely depending on
Mhm.
it. The description changes completely depending on the context. And then uh, if I was writing a blog on my hometown, then I may say something like, view of the historical center of Siena, the city where I grew up, with Piazza del Campo and the Torre del Mangio in the foreground and the brown brick facade of the church of San Francesco in the back. My sister's place, where I stay when I visit, is just off the church square. So I could say something like this if it was on my blog. And to answer your question as to how descriptive or not to be, it really is up to you. But I'm going to give you an example that is one of my favorite examples. That is the NASA. This is the NASA Webb Space Telescope images. They have a Twitter account, and basically their old text conveys the wonders and the beauty of these images in words, making the breathtaking views accessible. I'm paraphrasing a tweet that I have on the screen. And the image that is on the screen, it looks to me, if I were to describe it without any old text, it's like a starry sky. It's like a desert. It could be the Sinai Desert, the desert in Egypt. I've been there. It pretty much looks like this at night because like red, dry red, brown red
Clay
mountains with
earth, yeah. Mhm.
clay earth with this beautiful starry sky in the background. That's what I see. But then when you read the old text, it is I'm not going to read all of it because it's very, very long. And I'll see if I can actually find the link to this tweet because it's so beautiful. Everybody should really read it. So it says, the image is divided horizontally by an undulating line between a cloudscape forming a nebula along the bottom portion and a comparatively clear upper portion. Speckled across both portions is a star field. Already, a star field. I mean, how beautiful is that word? Showing innumerable stars of many sizes. The smallest of these are small, distant, and faint points of light. The largest of these appear larger, close, brighter, and more fully resolved with 8-point diffraction spikes. I'm going to stop here because I don't, it's really, really long. It would take another 5 minutes. I'm just going to jump slightly forward and I'm going to say the cloud like structure of the nebula contains ridges, peaks, and valleys, an appearance very similar to a mountain range, which is what I'd said. But I had no idea this is a cloud. This is a cloud-like structure of a nebula. It's amazing. I would never have known this. So even though I am sighted, the old text gives me not only the sheer pleasure of this pure poetry, but also it gives me an interpretation of the image that I would not have had if I hadn't had the old text description. So I think this is a really good example. And as you can see, this is very long old text. It's their decision, but because it's needed. Otherwise, you don't understand the image, I don't think. So
Mhm.
does that help a bit, Michelle? I mean, the thing is
Absolutely.
that I'm sure that maybe, there'll be other situation where you go, oh God, how does it work? But there is a a really helpful alt text decision tree that we can share the link to. But I also want to now share another thing about alt text, which is something that not everybody uses, which is an opportunity for humor and creativity. This is a Twitter account or an X account that's called We Rate Dogs. I think they changed the writer now. It's slightly changed, but it's delightful. It's about dogs, and it's to encourage people to adopt dogs. So the tweet itself says, already the tweet is really funny because there's a puppy in a house on the floor, and the tweet says, "This is Sesame. He echolocated his toy, trying to find another, and he takes all his focus. So please do not interrupt him." 12 out of 10, and that's already delightful. But then the old text says, "A speckled black and brown pup is lying on the floor with a soft rainbow toy under one paw. His fuzzy ears stick straight up from his head. They are, it must be said, enormous. Each one is about the size of his face, and they taper from very wide to a soft point." So this, to me, is a masterpiece example of alt text that actually tells you everything you need to know without going into excessive detail, because it hasn't told you that the floor is actually cream carpet. Who cares? That's not important. It hasn't told you that there's something black in the background because we don't know what it is. It hasn't told you there's socks or whatever other items on the floor. So this is a really kind of quite a masterpiece. And I don't really go on Twitter anymore. I use Blue Sky. And I was telling you earlier, Michelle, that I have a collection of good old text descriptions from there. So if you want, I will bring one up. Unless we're bored already. We bored?
I'm never bored with this.
Good. So, and actually, I think these are all birds. Has Andrew said anything else? Oh, James Lau. I'm always, so I will have to change.
So James says AI writing an alt text could end up as a nightmare, especially for an AI generated image.
Yeah, you have to be, because before we got started, I was ranting and raving against UI because it will not do the boring job of editing a transcript. And I was just like, and I'm sorry, Andrew, Bertha won't do that. It just won't, just absolutely doesn't do it. Let me find. Okay, sorry. Do you want to talk about something?
Sure. So one of the things I struggle with is, how do you or should you, how do you mention race and ethnicity when you are giving alt text to describe a person's headshot, for example? Don't I? Do I just mention that they have brown eyes and they're wearing glasses with long brown hair and a lovely smile? Like, what do I put? Do I say, and in the United States, people say, "Oh, an African American." Not every Black person is African American. So do we say a Black person? Do we say an Asian person? How do we respect culture without making it look like we're calling out ethnicity in a negative way?
That's such a good question. And actually, I found myself in that situation once with a client that they are an agency that helps. It's an NGO dealing with all child welfare issues. So on their website, they have a lot of images that are clearly brand images that are full of children of all ethnicities and people and families of all ethnicities. And there was the dilemma whether it was a decorative image or not, which is another thing, because people get really confused and go, is this image decorative? Should I give it an alt text? And the answer is that the only images that are decorative are like icons, line drawings that mean nothing. The rest
Right.
you have to describe, because something like that, for instance, was really essential to their brand, because they are an agency, an NGO agency that helps family of all ethnicities. But so that came up, and people were saying, bringing exactly this up. How do we, if there are three children and one is black presenting and the other one is Asian, but Asia is so vast.
Right,
Is it
exactly.
Southeast Asia? Are we able to say of what this descent, which is it, Japanese? Is it, or is it Indian presenting, Pakistani? How do you know if, it is, it is indeed a minefield. And so James is saying of Asian or Pacific Islander descent, which is correct. But what if it's they're not of a descent? They actually are, somewhere in Asia right now, and
Right.
that's where the so I find that that's the really the hardest thing, and I think that it is relevant. It is relevant to a point. It is relevant. Again, you have to analyze the context and you have to make a decision based on that. Now, I wish that Alice Orru, so I think I said this before, Alice Orru has a really good workshop on all text that anybody can watch for free on WordPress TV.tv. And she gave it at WordCamp Europe 2022 in Porto. And I think that she dealt with that in her usual incredibly tactful and insightful way. But I remember her actually posting about it recently, saying precisely, I'm posting an image that's a portrait of me and I'm describing something that I'm doing. Do I specify that I'm a white woman? And the thing is, in that case, you know that you're a white woman, but someone looking at you, can they know that? Because I know people that are white presenting, but actually they're not. They're half Aboriginal. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I completely agree with that, and I have to say that it is not a right answer to give. What I tend to do is, for instance, if it's more than one person in the image, I will say um, of varying ethnicities, because, for instance, in the in the website of this guy that was described, the NGO working with child welfare, the point is that they work towards the happiness of these children and of their families, and the families are of varied ethnicity. So where they come from doesn't really matter. And my yardstick is, if I wouldn't say if I wouldn't specify a person is white because it's irrelevant, because that's a bias, isn't it? We usually say, white is the default, and then we describe anyone who isn't. So if I wouldn't say white, then I won't say any other ethnicity, because it means it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. Because I mean, it means it's a group of friends in a pub, and it doesn't really matter
Right.
what ethnicity they are. But if you want to say London is a multicultural city, and here's one of its pubs with people that look like they're all over the world. So that's how I
Mhm.
do it. But again, it really depends on
Yeah.
the context. Andrew has a few. I think he's got a few funny comments about
Yeah.
Now Rogers.
So he says he had a description that Bertha gave for Pat Sharp and Nile Rodgers in a image I have of both of them in a selfie, which is two men take a selfie in front of a crowd at a music event. One man is smiling broadly, wearing a light blue shirt, while the other raises his arm in a peace sign, wearing glasses and a white hat. In the background, a large audience enjoys the performance. A DJ mixer is visible in front of them.
So I think that we need, for those who don't know who these people are, because that's also being accessible. So, for instance, I can't remember who Pat Sharp is, but Nile Rodgers is from the band. He's a black man, and he's from the band. Come on, help me. The
I
funky.
have no idea.
I know exactly. Come on, Andrew, please. Because I'm old. Oh, I anyway, it's gonna come up. So this is a really interesting description Andrew, because it means that Bertha isn't biased. Bertha didn't give a racial description. Should it have? So chic. Oh, Le Freak says chic. Thank you very much.
I was
Oh,
just looking it up.
honestly, it's so embarrassing. My brain today, I don't know what's wrong.
Oh, same.
So yeah. So that's really interesting. That's so again, it depends on context. But if you want to say, because funky music, you did work hard on a non-bias, Andrew. Well done. But the point is, maybe the human intervention could be that actually in this context, you do want to mention that if there are black people in the image, because funky music is mainly a black phenomenon. So let's not appropriate culturally. This is a case where it's like it belongs to them. So maybe,
Yeah,
maybe I'm just saying maybe, but it's such an interesting point to make, and that is why I think that even though I'm really impressed by that description, Andrew, it still is. It would need human intervention. So as you were saying earlier, it really is a great start, and then you always have to add the
yeah,
human intervention.
yeah.
And
So,
Blue Sky really promotes alt
oh
text,
yeah.
and there are some people doing an excellent job of it. Sorry, I interrupted the show.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. I was going to move us away from alt text for a few minutes so that we can um, talk a little bit about some of the other parts of text that make text accessible. And one of the things that I've got a cheat sheet that you created for us, so things to talk about. One of those things is acronyms, and um, acronyms are so often very specific to a culture, to um, an industry. When I was on my school board, I was on a school board here in my town for 12 years. The first year, I felt like I was walking into a room where they were speaking foreign languages, because in education, everything is acronyms. And I was like literally writing them down so that I could look them up later. On TikTok, I see acronyms. I have discovered I'm an old person because I have to go to urbandictionary.com and look up all the slang and acronyms that the young folks, like that the kids are using these days, as old people say, because I don't know all of these things. And so accessibility isn't always just about how can somebody see it or hear what is actually in the text, but how do they know what it is and what does it mean?
How they understand it. Acronyms drive me bonkers because, as you know, English is not my first language. I learned English uh, as a as a child, but it's not my first language. And when I started speaking properly, and then I made close friends in the UK, I was like, also UK, United Kingdom, you should never assume anything. You should
Right,
never assume,
right.
And they were like, "Oh, darling, what's your ETA?" And I was like, "What?
What's an
I don't know.
ETA?
What are you talking about? It's estimated time of arrival."
Right.
And then they told me, and then I knew, and it
Yeah.
is quicker because I think they're just lazy.
Yeah.
It's and I actually wrote quite a ranty email recently, which I had brought up, but it's disappeared again. Just going, or AWOL. I was like, what on earth is AWOL? What does that mean? I don't know what it
Right.
means. Or, it's so
Hmm.
is that if you're not think about people who whose first language is English, or they're not in the same industry. I wouldn't have a clue what the school acronyms mean. Or for instance, um I mean, even Andrew was saying that they're confusing. I find them also, it's a very, very Anglo-Saxon fixation. We don't use near as many in Italian or in Spanish. It was a very, very new thing for me. And I was like, why can't you just say it? People saying, I mean, people even signing with BR. And I was like, what? What's that? BR? What do you mean? No, oh, best regards. I'm like, can't you say best regards? I mean, how lazy are you? So it's a very, very,
Yeah.
I would want to say British but mainly my experience is British fixation.
Oh,
But
it's very
one
American
thing
as well.
yeah, I've since realized, but there's something that I don't know if you know, because found out recently when I sort of had my rant on about acronyms. I think I did also a LinkedIn post probably. But there are words that we take for granted as complete nouns that were in fact start are acronyms. They're not were, they are acronyms. And I'm wondering whether anyone of those listening right now, we have to wait for the slight delay that there is between us and them, but see if someone knows a few acronyms that are now words and that I had no idea were acronyms. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait a little while. But for instance, in our when I was researching a workshop on accessible data visualization, so I'm in the industry, I was finding articles that, speak to me, my niche. And I kept finding CVD. And I was like, what is CVD? I do not know what CVD stands for here. So what do? We Google. I Google
Right.
CVD, and the first result that comes up is cardiovascular disease.
Disease.
And I'm like,
Well, that can't be
what
it.
does that have to do with accessible data visualization? And then I somehow worked out or found somewhere that it stands in that context. It stood for color vision deficiency, which of course it works. I'm talking about
Right.
accessibility of data visualizations, but why not explain it at least
Right.
once in brackets, and then you can use it because it's quicker.
Right.
Okay, let's do
Mhm.
that. So I don't know
Absolutely.
if anyone has commented yet. No, they haven't.
Nothing yet. I can think of
Nothing
one
yet.
off the top of my head. Can I give mine while they are thinking?
Please.
Scuba, like scuba diving. Scuba is an
Yeah.
acronym, self contained underwater breathing apparatus. But we don't say that every time we say scuba.
Yes. And the thing is that in Italian, we don't say scuba. We don't know. So I thought that scuba was like scuba, like a funny British name. And then I
Mm.
found out that it's fascinating. Um, and that so now I'm gonna go for it because nobody said anything. I think we waited long enough. So one of them that blew me away is radar.
Yeah,
Did you know that? And
I
you
did know that, but I can't remember what it stands for. I knew it was an
it's
acronym, though.
radio detection and ranging radar. And there's
Yeah.
another one that's related, and it's sonar and laser. Yes, James actually, if we'd
Yep.
given you more time, you would have probably anticipated us. Yes, exactly. Laser, I'd forgotten,
Yep.
but sonar. I never thought because sonar it's about sound, so you think, well, that
Right.
makes sense, maybe. And actually, I've studied both Latin and Greek, and it never occurred to me that actually there isn't a word in Latin that is sonar. But um, sonar is sound navigation and ranging. So we should write them out in capitals. Now James is completely going for it now, and
Yeah.
he's
I
as
think he's
so
Googled.
with NASA. Yeah, but NASA is not a word though. NASA is an organization, so that's
Right.
not. It doesn't mean something. Whereas
Right.
sonar, radar, laser, spam, and modem are all words that have a meaning, and in fact, they are
Well, now I want
acronyms.
to know what spam actually means. I don't know.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I used to know. I used to know. I can't remember. Yeah, but NATO again, James is an organization, and of course we
Right.
call it NATO as UNICEF or UNESCO. That's a bit different. I'm
Right.
talking about acronyms that are now nouns. They have a meaning. We use
That we
them
would use them in a
as
sentence
words.
and
Yeah,
not
we
to
use them
refer
in
to
a
just one
sentence.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So um, I think it is fascinating when you start delving. Oh yeah, spam is actually
Yeah.
spiced
Spiced
ham.
ham.
Thank you, James.
Is there actually any ham in spam? That's another question for another day.
That's a question for another day. And why do we use spam for spam for the spam folder? Is it because spammy rubbish? I used to know. I can't remember.
Probably. It's where all the bits and pieces that don't fit into everything else go.
That we don't want to know about. It's like, nothing good can come of it. There's definitely no good bits in it. Yeah,
Little known
maybe.
fact, I'm actually allergic to the tinned meat spam, which turns out is not that great an issue.
Right, exactly. I mean, out of all the things you could be allergic to,
Yeah.
that's the least
No, I'm quite
painful. If
fine
you
with it.
were I mean, if you're allergic to cats, it'd be much worse,
Absolutely.
because you couldn't cuddle them. So I have a quite a funny acronym that Brits of a certain age probably remember. So David Cameron was the prime minister from, if I recall correctly, I think 2010 to 2016. I would not qualify him in any way, but he was relatively young. He was only in his 40s, but he was famously, not very much down with the kids because, um, and he was outed by a friend as signing his messages with LOL because guess what he thought that meant?
Lots of love.
LOL at the end of a match. Lots of love. That's what he
Yeah.
thought. And we need to say because there's no, why should
Laughing out loud.
anyone know? It's laugh out loud or laughing out
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
Um, and he was completely bewildered and dumbfounded when he found out that actually it doesn't mean lots of love. And this friend actually didn't tell him for ages because she found it
She thought it was
hilarious.
funny.
Quite
Yeah.
rightly. Quite rightly.
Yeah.
So the thing with acronym is always spell it out at least once. Then don't never assume knowledge, even when you think, of course, everybody knows this. No, what do you know about them? Why should they know? No,
Yeah.
never assume it. And when you use all caps, the reason why, one of the reasons why we don't put sonar or radar or any one of those now words in all caps is that, for instance, screen readers read all caps
Letter by letter.
as an acronym. As an
Yeah.
acronym. So you don't want to say SO and AR. You want to say sonar because now it means a word. And just, in general, like a rule of thumb with acronyms, do not be lazy, please. Don't
Yes.
sign off with BR. Sign off with best regards.
Use a
GIF
text
is another
expander if you need
acronym,
to
and it
make
makes
it
it work.
easy.
Yes, use a text suspender. Yes.
That's what I do.
Exactly. Sorry, and as usual, we've been at this
Yeah.
for what?
One more
Nearly
one
40
more thing I
minutes
want
already.
I would like to ask you
Yes.
about, and then we can end with this, is link text is very important because click here doesn't mean anything to anyone. And so describing your link text, it can be challenging sometimes to figure out how to put link text in a paragraph and make sure that you know what things are the context is correct and all of that. But link text is super important because would you click on something in an email that you weren't sure where it was going to
No.
take you? Of course not, because with all of the um, the viruses and things like that, we're cautious where we're clicking through, and we want to know what it is that I'm clicking. Well, the same is true for anybody using a screen reader. So please make your link text mean something.
That's such an important point to make. And in fact, I was asked by someone recently about it, and I realized that I wrote an email about it. I also wrote a couple of LinkedIn posts. So I have an article on how to write and style. Maybe I talk about the styling of links as well a little bit. So I'm just going to paste it in the YouTube comments, if I may, Michelle. Should I do it?
Please, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
So you need, they read more in all the WordPress blog archive pages. Don't do that because read more. A lot of people that use a screen reader use links to navigate the page. They sort of use links to scan through a page, which we do with our eyes, and they would do it with a screen reader. So those links need to be understandable out of context. If it's read more, then what does that relate to? We don't know that. So you can make, for instance, the title of the article your link instead in that case. Otherwise, just describe where that link is going to take you to, because there's a difference semantically between a button and a link. A link takes you somewhere else. Where is this link going to take me? So describe where the link is going to take you. So for instance, try and sort of change your frame of mind like that. So make it descriptive and never say things like click here. Forget
Right.
about that entirely. I was
Exactly.
trying to think of an example. I've probably got it. Oh yeah, and uh, um, yeah, just make sure that your trail is clear, that people click on your link and find themselves somewhere logical, not a complete surprise.
Right. Exactly. And we'll talk about more about links and things like that in upcoming episodes. This is a limited edition, so you get 10 of these, and then the rest of it you've got to take classes for. And you can spend a lot of time, and I encourage you to actually spend a lot of time digging deeper and learning more. And Piccia actually has some courses about that. She can post about those, and you can take her classes online to learn how to be better at accessibility. Next week, we're talking color and contrast, which I find absolutely fascinating and am excited about because so often I have to highlight things on a screen to actually be able to see what something says and to understand it. Because even if I can read it, sometimes it just gives me a headache if the contrast is bad, or if it's those warring colors, like somebody puts orange and turquoise on top of each other, it's immediately headache inducing. And so there's lots of ways that we can do much better with color and contrast. So we're going to discuss those next week. Any last minute thoughts for today, Piccia?
Just to say that when you start on your accessibility journey, first of all, you never look back. You can't stop it. But I also want to say that even though I do teach it, but I'm also still learning all the time. As I was saying earlier, I always ask questions. I ask people that know better than me, and I keep learning. You know what I want to say before I leave? I want to say something that I wanted to start with, but then we dived straight into all text. So the European Accessibility Act has just come into force well, actually, legislation in all the member states of the European Union has just come into force, and it's already started. They just like you can do in the US now, big companies can be sued, and it started in France. 4 major retail, I mean, one of them is Carrefour, which I think is all over the world. They've been there's an association of blind consumers that has told them, together with a collective of lawyers, they've told these 4 major retailers, sort your websites out by the 1st of September or we sue you. And you know how August in France, Spain, Italy, I mean, it is not a month where you get your website
It's
accessible.
holiday, yeah.
You don't work. So I was like, oh my God, really impressed. And I mean, I don't want for Europe to become a litigious place, but yes, how does a giant like Carrefour not have an accessible website yet? So it is happening, and it is something that, to be honest, I am happy about. And that's why we're here talking about it, because we don't want to lead with fear. We want to
Right.
lead with knowledge and awareness.
Right.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. As I've said
That's
many times over, there are many reasons to have accessible web design. The first is so that people can absolutely understand and take in everything on your website. That is the altruistic reason. If you don't care about that, do it for SEO purposes so that your SEO is better. If you don't care about that, do it because you could get sued. There are so many reasons. The best of which is that you care about other humans, but the least of which is your wallet. So I don't care which reason you do it for. Honestly, just make your sites more accessible.
I couldn't agree more. That's all we need to say.
Excellent. Next week, we're talking color and contrast. Come back and learn more from the amazing Piccia with my comments thrown in here and there. We'll see you then.
Thank you so much, Michelle.